Are you ready to increase your retention and revenue and convert website traffic to clients? Then you're ready for Maya. Maya is a marketing and client recruitment software. Maya creates better business relationships by pairing the right clients with the right beauty professionals. How do we do it? A matchmaker. Your brand will have its own unique matchmaking survey. By pairing people based on their skill set, budget, personality, and lifestyle preferences, Maya creates lasting relationships that keep both sides coming back for more. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. Pair the right clients with the right beauty pros the first time. Visit joinmaya.com to get started.
Thank you for joining me. This is Katie Whitledge with the Beyond the Technique podcast. We're talking about overcoming financial burnout. Oh, I know so many of you are feeling this, whether you are behind the chair or you are running things for people who are behind the chair. I know that you are going to really love this topic, and who better to speak about it than to make that money pro dominate everything on social media. If you're not already following Nina Tulio, you should be, and we have our link in our show notes for you to go to Instagram and follow her. She is a force in our industry to be reckoned with. And you know what? She's been here before. Way back in 2020, Nina joined us for episode 352 and episode 393, talking about her journey from what it used to be like to be a salon owner to really scaling, finally taking ownership to scale her business, taking accountability. You're going to hear all about that. And she is back now with a really strong message, a passion for helping industry pros really grow a sustainable and successful business without the burnout. So let me remind you that Nina has over 27 years of experience. She is a distinguished salon business mentor, speaker, and educator. She's dedicated to nurturing growth among salon owners and stylists worldwide. She is sought after to speak globally at events. She is so good on stage, and I can't believe we have her back here today. You may know she's also a business education ambassador for Oligo Professional and brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to her role. She boasts 20 years as a hairstylist, 8 years as a chain salon executive, and 11 years as a successful commission salon owner. So she's really seen things from all sides of the fence, which makes her so powerful and her advice so profound. So without further ado, help me welcome Nina Tulio. Welcome back to Beyond the Technique.
Oh my God. Can you just talk about me like that every day? So when I have a
If
hard
you
time
get
getting up in the morning, I can just press repeat all the time.
I'll leave you a voice text. It'll be your positive affirmation in the morning.
Thank you so much for all of your kind words. And thank you so much for having me back. I love our chats. I love our conversations. It's been way too long. And I'm just ready to dive in and I'm happy to be here.
Well, I want to remind people a bit about your journey. We've heard you really have had all of these various areas of experience within the industry, but let's go back to the beginning. Like, what got you into the beauty industry from the jump?
So here's the thing. And I think I talked about this before. I either wanted to be a dolphin trainer or a hairstylist. And did we talk about this or maybe
I don't
not?
remember the dolphin
Maybe we
trainer.
did. Maybe we didn't talk about this, but I then talked to my mom and I'm like, "Hey, I think I want to be a dolphin trainer." And she's like, do you know that you have to go to school for 4 years and like share a room and a bathroom with like a whole floor of people?" And I was like, "Yeah, forget that. I'm out." But I really always in my heart and soul, I wanted to be a hairstylist. And so I was the first one to sign up for my Vote Tech. I'm a vocational student, and I was the first one to sign up for my class in 10th grade. And I just knew that I wanted to help other people look and feel beautiful, which is why the majority of us get into this industry. And it's now 27 years later, and here I am, and I've been through all of the things. And I'm just so grateful for the journey that I've had because it allows me to speak from experience and it allows me to speak with true passion because I just genuinely care about people and I care deeply about our industry.
Yeah, and speaking of our industry, what have you noticed post pandemic? We can't kind of blame things or like go back to that anymore. We're really in a new era with
Mhm.
new challenges, but also new opportunities. What have you seen in the past year or two as being some of our bigger challenges, whether you are behind the chair or you are running a commission team?
Well, I think we We made it through COVID, and that, of course, with challenges, even up to a couple years after, 2 years after even, let's say. And then we kind of went on a high ride, and things were going well, and we were on the upswing as an industry. And then, we started to come down the hill a little bit, and I think we're kind of like, midline right now. I know that there are salons. I work with several of them that are thriving, expanding, doing very well. But I also know that there are a lot of challenges. And the two that stick out in my mind the most are hiring. So finding people, finding stylists, and finding stylists that fit their brand. And the other one is reverting back to the fear mindset. And that has to do with a lot of financial stress and strain. And listen, if there's anyone that knows about financial stress and strain, it's me, because I was a salon owner that was broke and was $90,000 in debt because of my own poor decision making during the recession of 2009.
Wow.
So I think what's happening is every time there's a shift in the economy, there is a lot of, I don't want to say negativity, because we have to be realistic about what's going on, but there is sometimes a little bit of a negative approach or almost a scare tactic where then owners and even independents, they revert back to what I like to call our emotional home. And for a lot of us, that emotional home is fear. It's discounting. It's giving away free services. It's lowering our prices. It's not taking a profit. It's not getting paid, right? We go back to that. Well, I'll give everything up just to serve my clients and make sure they show up, not having price increases when they're due. And so I think that's kind of what's happening. There's a lot of talk, and a lot of shifting, and it's causing people to be fearful in the way that they're running their businesses. And that breaks my heart, because I feel like we took 10 steps forward and now, we're taking a couple steps back. But that's business ownership. There's always ebbs and flows. There's always ups and downs, and you got to learn to ride the wave and pivot. And resiliency is like top of mind. We got to we got to get in our feels. We got to, feel all the things, because there are a lot of emotions when you're an owner and when you're out on your own. But then we got to kind of jump back on that horse and revisit and pivot in our own businesses to work with the change as opposed to working against the grain.
How would you describe financial burnout from the perspective of somebody who is behind the chair versus the owner? Like, how would you describe that and what people are feeling right now? And as you say, it stems from fear and it affects the decisions we're making.
Sure. I think, with financial burnout, because we've been talking about burnout for such a long time, and with COVID, that really made everyone reassess their priorities. And so after COVID, people said, shit, I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to have boundaries. I'm going to say no, right? That's one side of burnout. The other side of the burnout, which I think we've done very well with the business side of it, people are paying more attention to their numbers and to their profit margins and to their pricing. But I think where we kind of are still falling short a little bit is that we're starting to we're starting to revert back to that fear mindset when it comes to our finances, because we're getting nervous to raise prices even though the demand is there. And we're starting to feel the pain a little bit when we have clients walk out and we maybe spent 5 hours with them and we charge them whatever, let's just pick a number, $300, when we know in our heart and soul we should have charged them 500. And so there's a lot of the emotional discounting and the emotional pricing, which is driving this burnout, because then the client leaves. Then you're like mad at yourself because you didn't charge enough. Then the end of the month comes along. You got to write all those checks and pay all those bills. And now you're like, shit, I'm working my ass off and I still don't have a profit, or I still cannot pay myself. Well, that comes from not understanding price per minute, price per hour, not understanding target profit, not understanding what you should be charging when it comes to product cost and percentages. And the financial burnout is real, because nothing is worse than working so hard and barely having enough to cover the bills. Like, that's the worst feeling ever. And it makes you exhausted, both physically and mentally.
How would you advise a salon owner who's saying, hey, I'm noticing our consumer demand is really our mid-level stylist because they don't charge the highest price of everybody, yet they do really competent work and they have tons of opportunities or openings, availability for their level ones. They have a large amount of kind of newer talent and not as many maybe master level performers, but they have availability. They have some openings. What's the strategy? Let's get everybody as booked as possible. And when do we know it's time and by what amount that we are to increase our prices? Because it is kind of like watching supply and demand. So, what's your strategy in helping them with that?
Well, I think, we have to stop guessing. That's the first part of it. We have to stop guessing and saying, this looks good. This feels good, right? We don't ever want to base pricing on feelings because
Mhm.
pricing is a business decision that affects your profit, your sales, and your schedule. And when we base it on our feelings, right away, we're going to undercut ourselves. And so we have to stop guessing. That's number one. Number two is, I would love to say, well, here, do XYZ because this is going to help you understand your price per minute, price per hour. I have calculators for that goes in and shows everybody, okay, if I put in all of my business expenses, actually, I'll give you the 5 factors to pricing, the 5 basic factors to pricing, just so people can understand how we're gathering information. You have to calculate your time, your product cost, your target profit, which is different for independent artists than it is for the commissioned salon owner, hours worked, and total business expenses. Now, that's just basic 5 factors of pricing, right? Now, we also have to look at some other things. We have to do some market research. There's the demand component. Are we booked and busy? Are we turning people away? Do we have a wait list? Are we getting requests per week? Are we, is that demand high enough in order for us to, have price increases, but price our services properly? And so when we look off of those 5 factors, and then with my calculation and my worksheets based off of your numbers, not what's happening down the street at the salon, down the way, we can see, okay, well, your baseline, let's just do some figures here, not figures, but let me just give you an example.
Sure.
Okay, if I say your baseline price per minute is $1 a minute, and I run all of your calculations, this is what I would do for a salon owner, and look at each tier if they have a tiered system. We want to make sure that the baseline for all of the services is at least $1 a minute. Now, what we have to consider is our tier ones. If we have, entry level stylists, they're going to work a little bit slower. Their price per minute is going to be a little bit lower because their time impacts their price per minute and their price per hour. But the goal is to have everybody at least average as a salon at $1 a minute. And this is just purely an example. I'm just using $1 a minute as an
Yep.
example. Then we look at, okay, how do we want to grow the business? If we look at growth, and let's just say for this particular salon, I'm going to say we want to have a 10% growth in revenue for the month and for the year. Now it's going to calculate a target price per minute, price per hour. So then we work on bridging the gap between the baseline and the target. And we look at that overall. Your master stylist or your tier fours, or however you're wording this, they're going to have a different PPM because typically they work more efficiently, they work faster. So their PPM is going to be a little bit higher than maybe your tier ones, but we're looking for overall averages.
Mm.
Where we fall short, though, is that a lot of times we are undercharging, period. So now, for instance, I'm just thinking of a coaching client of mine where we were looking at her price per minute and her tier ones were 27 cents under the baseline.
Mm.
27 cents. Now you may think, oh, 27 cents. That shit turned into $22 a
Yeah.
minute on certain services, right? I'm sorry, $22 for that particular service. Now we're short.
Sure. Yep.
Well, now that $22 times how many services a week, they were losing thousands and thousands of dollars just on their tier ones or their benchmark. I call them benchmark ones. And so we have to know where we're starting first. And we have to understand that facts and data drive prices, not feelings. And we have to stop guessing, because if you start your tier ones or your benchmark ones low everybody else behind them is going to be lower. And now you start to play catch up. And that's what I see is happening. Salon owners are like, wait a minute, something's wrong in my business. Like either it's a volume issue, it's a pricing issue, it's an average ticket issue, right? So we look at those three things. And if the pricing isn't right, you and your team have to work so much harder to make the money that you want to make just to cover the bills. And that's why salon owners are having a hard time profiting because they're guessing. And you don't want to guess when it comes to finances because it's, especially with pricing, it's the driver of sales and profit, you know? So when we're short, I mean, we're short and people are really struggling in that sense.
You mentioned that you have a group of salons that you work with that are thriving and knocking it out of the park right now. I
Mhm.
would love to hear, like, what do they have in common? What have they done that have helped them set themselves up for success?
Absolutely. And actually just had 3 of them that have been on my Make That Money podcast. I interviewed them. And the 3 of them share the one that pops in my head and honestly doesn't even have anything to do with finances. The thing that they share the most is that number 1, they adapted to the changes in the industry and they applied the changes in their business. So they're not operating their salons from 5, 10 years ago. They shifted, they've changed, they've become more flexible. Their leadership has gotten stronger. They hold themselves accountable. They really also put their team first. That probably is at the top of the list. And so for them to attract new stylists, they're not having a hard time because the people that interview with them, they already know their reputation precedes them. They already know they're the salon that they want to work with because they know that their stylists are taken care of. And I'm not just talking about compensation. I'm talking about being seen, being heard, being valued, and being appreciated. And on the flip side of that, financially, is all 3 of them understand their price per minute, price per hour, baseline, and target. They understand what their product cost is per service. They know what their target profit margin is. So they know, and they share this with their team. So, you know, they understand that if they undercut on a service, they're losing money in profit. And they have conversations with their team about discounting, and they're very transparent in that way.
Yeah.
So those are the things that come top of mind when I think about the 3 of them and what they're doing. The other thing too is that they listen, they take full accountability for what happens in their business, good and bad. You know, they're like, yay, riding the wave when it's great. And they're like, holy shit, I screwed up when things are not going great. And I think accountability is a huge piece that we have to own as leaders. And you know what? Sometimes we're going to screw up. Lord knows I have made a million mistakes as a salon owner. And I came to my team and told them that I screwed up. I disappointed you. I let you down. I'm sorry. You know, I think there's a lot of humility and empathy that has to happen in our industry in terms of being good leaders. And they've done that. And they're 2 of them have expanded their salons, the salon owners that I'm talking about. 2 of them have expanded in the last 2 years. And one of them, and she shared this on the podcast, went from making $18,000 a month to making almost over 60 grand a month in revenue in her
Wow,
business.
amazing.
Yes. And she talks about that. And, you know, her and I have been working together, I think maybe over 3 years or now. But listen, it is not about me. She has put in the work. She has stepped it up like no other. And it actually makes me want to cry for her. I'm so proud of her. But operating from $18,000 months for her, every salon is different, right? For going from that, it's life changing
Life changing.
into what she's doing now. And so I want people to be hopeful, you know, when they listen to this and know that businesses change when the people who are running the businesses change.
Mm.
And we have to understand that if we want to see significant change in our businesses, we have to be the significant change because it all starts with us as leaders.
Well, the title is overwhelmed, or how to overcome financial burnout, but the
Mhm.
word that comes to my mind is overwhelm. Like, You
Mhm.
have owners listening today that are so fired up, like, yes, I want better. I'm willing to change. What do I do? Where do I start? So when you're coaching, and by the way, for everybody listening, we have the link to Nina's website so you can check out all that she offers. But as you begin to coach your salon owners, where are the kind of the first steps in order to set the foundation of success for every other area of their business?
Well, we always go to the finances first. It's finances and leadership. They're kind of tied. But I always like to dive into the finances first because the numbers will always tell the story of the business. And so when I can look at finances and we can go through pricing and we can go through payroll percentages and we can look at rent percentages and look at back bar and all the things, by the way, I just gave you 3 areas for the commission salon owner that are your drivers. If your payroll percentage is high, you're losing profit. If your rent percentage is high, you need more volume in your business. And if your back bar percentage is high, stop overspending, right? You don't need 30 developers of 20 volume. Okay. I've been there, so I can talk shit like that because I've done it myself. But I think those are the 3 areas that we typically focus on and we look into because when we're looking at profit and loss statements, yeah, we have to look at sales. Do we have a sales issue? Do we have a volume issue, right? Are we not getting as many new clients as we need? Then we look at the back end. What's the retention like? Hey, you may be getting 40, 50, 60, 70 new clients a month, but how many of them are actually coming back? Because if you're not retaining your clients, you're not growing your business. And then we look at the expense side of it. Okay, where are you overspending? Rent is a fixed expense. Rent's never going to go down. It's only going to go up. The only way we change rent percentage is if we increase revenue. So if your rent percentage is high, that already tells me that we don't have enough volume in the business. So these are the things that we do, but rent, payroll, back bar for my commission salon owners. We want to run those percentages. And actually, if you go on my website, ninatulio.com, I have a free profit and product usage calculator that you can run your numbers just to see what your percentages are. And you can do that totally free because we just have to start paying attention to these things. And we get nervous because, a lot of this is foreign to us. We're creative people. Listen, I barely graduated high school because I couldn't get past algebra 1 as a senior in high school. And now here I am talking about all this shit and talking finances and creating Excel sheets and doing percentages, right? I mean, I really had to apply myself. But the more you pay attention to your numbers, the more you know about your business and the more you understand it. And when you understand your business and you have facts and data, then you make decisions based on that and not emotion. So we distance ourselves from the emotion and we have facts. And that's why people in my courses have become, they are success stories because they're like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be charging this and I'm charging this. And if I don't charge this, that means I don't make a profit on that service. I'm never discounting again. Like it makes you more confident as a leader, as an independent when you understand your finances, because you start to see that clients will choose where they want to be. They may leave you tomorrow, but you have to run your business based on what's going to be best for you and the business, not what's best for Judy and Linda. Because Judy and Linda can leave tomorrow. And where does that leave you? They're not going to write you a letter and send you a check for all of their canceled appointments. We've got to get out of that emotional space. And it's very, very, very hard. But when you look at your numbers and you see what you're doing to yourself and your business, it's a wake-up call. So that's kind of where we would start. I mean, that was a lot, but we kind of have to dive into all of those areas first.
Which takes humility, and then on the other side of that is courage, because you're going to show
Yes.
them their gap, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have the courage to then make some changes. When it comes to that, and you talked about fear, what is usually the hang up or the hold up for actually going with it? Okay, we got to increase by X percent across the board in order for
Mm-hmm.
this to work. What usually holds people up?
It's the fear of what the clients are going to say and the fear of how the team is going to respond. And it's all fear driven. And, I working through this as a coaching client comes to mind, we had a smaller increase being more conservative because that's what we felt was going to be best. But at the end of the day, we're still playing catch up. And a lot of it was driven around, oh my God, well, what if we lose our clients? Like most people think, and like how I used to think too. What if we lose our clients? And then we have stylists that are not feeling confident in themselves, so they don't want to have a price increase. So then they're still discounting their services. And it's so fear-based that it keeps people still and stuck. And fear does that. That's why I always say, listen, even if we can do one small thing, like let's just have an increase on color services. Like let's just do one thing, because that's action and it's one step forward. Because if we do nothing, we get nothing. And so we can do baby steps. I can work like that, but I just don't want people staying still in their business, because then the fear takes over and then they do absolutely nothing. And then the business doesn't change. And then it actually can start to revert backwards. Now we start moving in the other direction, where we start seeing our profit going from whatever, 10% to 8% to 2% to zero. And now we have to climb out of that big, deep hole. I think fear, it's in all of us. We have fear, we have imposter syndrome. We question ourselves. We have, our belief system. A lot of times we have those limiting beliefs that hold us back. And I think a lot of that has to do with belief in self. The more we believe in ourselves and what we deliver and the value that we offer, the more confidently we show up. But we have to continue to do that work. And it's a lot of self work. It's not just numbers. It's a lot of self empowerment. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of podcasts. It's a lot of listening to and like paying attention to what's going on in business, not in our industry, business. Find other people. Like I love Marcus Lemonis. I like to listen to Tony Robbins. I like to listen to people who have been doing this for a long time, that are outside of the beauty industry, but they're talking business, because there's so many. They really talk about fear and what that can do to your business. And they talk about how to kind of bounce back from that and really start believing in yourself and your talent. So you can charge more, and then you can get out of debt, or now you can start making a profit and paying yourself. It's like a vicious cycle.
It is. And, at the beginning, I asked, what have you noticed in the last couple years in the industry? What are you hoping to see if you could predict the future? How do you feel our industry is going to evolve for professionals behind the chair, or even owners with teams?
I think this little downslope that we're in, or maybe like this little lull, I think anytime that stuff like this happens, we learn more about ourselves. And with challenge does come opportunity. We just have to see it. We can look at the challenges, or we can look at the light and see the opportunities. So I think there's always going to be growth from this. The people that are struggling right now, I feel you. My heart aches for you, because I just know what it feels like to be financially strapped and have a team of people relying on you and crying in the middle of the night because you don't have money to pay payroll. It is a very, very scary place to be. But if we just take those small steps every single day and put a plan together and stick to it and be consistent, it's one of the things I think we struggle with in this business is consistency. I think we're going to see a lot of growth. I think our upswing is going to be big. I think we're going to start to see stylists become more confident. We're going to see conversations change from stylists trying to convince clients how good they are to, I don't need to talk about how good I am anymore. I'm just going to show you. I think there is going to be an uptick in confidence, and I think people are going to start getting back on the track of like, I am valuable. I can charge XYZ. I think there's going to be a big shift in that. We just got to get through this moment right now that I think could be a little bit gray or a little bit challenging. And we do that by we just keep chipping away, and we pivot. Like we don't stay still. If something's not working, we don't change the goal. We change the approach. Like if I go left and it's not working, I'm going to go straight. If straight doesn't work, I'm going to go right. Hell, I'll turn myself all the way around until I figure it out, and don't be afraid to make mistakes, because mistakes actually get you closer to your success. So don't be afraid to actually, I think failure is great. It means you're trying something that you haven't tried yet, which is really good. It builds character and it builds strength. So I think we're going to see an upswing in confidence. And I'm hoping that the support and collaboration will continue to grow as well in our industry.
I know one of the things that drives you nuts is when owners or professionals tell their clients, "Hey, we're doing a price increase because my expenses have gone up from the cost of my goods and
Right.
whatnot."
Yeah.
And let's imagine you have a professional or brand that you're working with who they have their numbers, they're on point.
Mhm.
How often would you recommend they audit or kind of relook at that? Is this a quarterly thing? Is this annually that's like, hey, we should consider a price increase or we should consider reviewing these areas or these metrics? What do you typically advise on that?
I mean, I usually say if we're doing increases and we're doing minimal, like micro increases, we'll look at them every 6 months. We'll revisit that increase, but typically once a year. Like, look at your expenses, look at your price per minute, price per hour, look at your demand and see where you're at in a year. Now, you may not need a price increase every year, and that's okay, but you should really be reassessing your pricing every year because things can dramatically change. And just because we know on the back end that color has gone up a lot, foils went up a lot, gloves have gone up, right? Since COVID, things have increased significantly. Your clients don't need to know that, but you do. You need to know what a glove costs you in cents, like how much is a glove, how much is a piece of foil. Like you need to understand what it costs you per ounce of color and developer, but your clients don't need to know that. Only you and your CPA need to know that. Again, when we talk about the confidence side of it, I think the more that stylists and owners dive into that and understand their own business, the less convincing they will feel they have to do. And that's really what I want to see is less convincing. If I see one more damn reel or TikTok about someone showing receipts from the beauty supply, no one cares. That's not valuable to the client. They don't care how much it cost you for a color tube. They care about what they're going to receive when they enter in your space and how you're going to make them feel while they're there and how they feel when they go home and the experience that they have. So we have to understand and think like a consumer sometimes. Like what does the consumer want to feel when they come into the space? They don't want to know about developer and it's 20 cents an ounce.
Right.
That's not going to convince them to stay with you. And I think, we're going to see some changes in that too. And people are going to talk less because they don't feel that they have to convince anybody anymore because they just believe wholeheartedly in what they're doing and in their talent.
Well, I agree with you. And I think the work starts internal and then the external is just getting support with people who can help them in these
Hmm.
areas like yourself. I love that you've been here again today to share your wisdom on financials with us and just the burnout and just the industry in general. It's just incredible. Before we're done, any final words of wisdom for owners specifically listening who are like, I thought I had my act together in finances, but it's not really coming all together. I'm not getting that profit margin I really hope and deserve for. I think there is this thing in our heads that we hear, oh, this salon is a 30% profit margin. We're like, yeah, right. Like, is that possible? How would you kind of encourage them in knowing what could be possible for their business?
Well, a couple things. Well, I'll tell you, the target profit margin for the commissioned salon owner is 20%. Now, that's going to vary because are you on payroll? Are you filing as an S corp? If you're on payroll, your profit margin is going to be lower than 20%. So we do have to take things into consideration, but that's what I coach and teach to. And that's, that 20% profit. And when I was an owner, my first 5 years, shit show, I didn't make any profit. I barely was, getting ends meet here my first 5 years. I started to profit a little bit more toward that 5 year mark, but I was really, really struggling. And then after that, and I finally got my act together, I was making 17 to 23% profit. So it's possible. Um, for my independent artists that are listening, your profit margin is at least a 50% profit. Now, why so much higher? Because independents don't have the big giant monster called payroll. And typically, the payroll is what's going to absorb the majority of the profit for the commission owner. So, do I know salons that are making 30%? Maybe one comes to mind. That's amazing. But, if we're looking, I'd say anywhere between 15 to 20% is very doable, depending on what you're paying yourself and how you're compensating yourself. I say, 8% is the average. in the United States. That's what the commissioned salon owner is making in the United States, about 8%. And I think here's, you mentioned internal and external, and I've talked about this a lot. Stop paying attention and being distracted by what's going on Instagram.
Mm.
You know, everything that you need is within you and in the four walls of your business. So we have to look internally and stop blaming the external. So what you need is within here. It could be within your leadership, it could be within the way you're leading your teams, it could be within your finances, it could be within your own spirit and self. And I think we have to look internally first and stop blaming the external for what's going on in our own businesses. I love that you brought that up because it sparked that in me. And I think it's so important to understand that everything that we need is within us. We can't just go and follow trends that are happening on Instagram and see what's going on and say, hey, I want to do that, or hey, that looks good, or oh, they're doing that, I should be doing that. Every business is so different. And that's why I think it's important to find someone that you jive with. If you're going to hire a coach or you're going to work with someone, they have to blend with you. It may be me, it may not be me. I'm not for everyone, of course, but find your person that really aligns with your own goals and your own mission, and stop comparing. Stop comparing, because that will just rob everything that you have worked so hard for. Give yourself a little bit of grace. Ownership is incredibly hard. It is the roller coaster that never freaking ends. It just never stops. Like, it just keeps going through the station, and you've got to hold on for dear life, and you're going to have real high highs and you're going to have real low lows, and make sure that you surround yourself with people who understand, people who can really empathize with what you're going through, because it is a very different business. But I think together, we're going to be good. We'll always continue to rise. We're very resilient souls in this business.
Gosh, drop the mic on all of that because you brought us, I was like, final words of wisdom. Actually, I've got a lot and it was so good. I took a ton of notes. I'm sure everybody listening did as well. And again, to remind everybody, go to the link in our show notes, go utilize that free calculation tool that Nina has on her website. We have the link there for you. And also follow her on Instagram, because you know what? People that like Nina are changing lives literally through her posts. She cares that much. She gives so much away, and just the advice that she is providing in every post that she puts out on social media. So I love following you, and just I'm a huge fan. So thank you again for being with me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love our chats. I'm so proud of you and everything that you've been doing, and I appreciate you for having me on again. So thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you all for joining us here week after week. If you love this platform, we would appreciate if you take a moment, leave us a positive review wherever you're listening, so that more people like yourself will discover Beyond the Technique, where we are here to change the way that you are supported in your business. Until next time, everybody, have an awesome day and stay strong.